So let's say your young person walks up to you and says, Daddy, Mommy, school is scam. What do you do? What do you tell them? Or maybe they're a bit kinder or nicer and wouldn't just tell you directly, but you can see from the way they engage with their schoolwork that they think it's an absolute waste of time. What do you do? If you were like my dad, you would say, "Are you are you are you okay?" But that's not what I would advise you to do. As someone who has studied to the point of a PhD, it will surprise you to know that I would ask you to listen to them carefully because they might have a point. They might have a strong point to believe that school is scam. And I say that for a few reasons. Reason number one, a lot of schools these days have refused to keep up with the times. Some schools, and I'm not saying all schools, some schools, and especially in some developing countries, are still holding on to this archaic, long time ago way of thinking where they do not accommodate or make space for people who are neurodivergent, people who think in different ways, people who learn in different ways. I don't know if you've heard of Simon Squibb before, that guy who walks up to people with a mic and just asks them, what's your dream? He's a strong proponent of the idea of school being scam, and I understand where he's coming from. If you listen to his story, you'll understand where he's coming from. One of the things, experiences he had, he said at the age of 14, a teacher looked at him and told him he was stupid simply because he was dyslexic and couldn't read at the age of 14, couldn't read properly, I think, at the age of 14. He has gone on to do so well without school, was homeless at the age of 15 when his dad died and was, thrown out of the house by his mom, has gone on to become a millionaire, has gone on to do a lot for himself and is out there helping young people to succeed. So I understand where people like him are coming from, but I've also haven't been in this business for a while. I've worked with a lot of parents and a lot of young people whose children think school is scam. And so what do you do and how do you engage with your teenager or your young person when they tell you that? Like I said, listen to them. Understand if they actually have a point, because school is not for everybody. Some schools have refused to catch up with the fact that now information is everywhere. And the truth is, if all you do is to rely on just the school system as the thing that makes you succeed, you might be disappointed. And so let me quickly share my own story with you. So when I was going to uni a while ago, my older brother, who is a mentor and someone I respect seriously, told me that if you graduate with a first class, the sky will be your starting point. And I took that as gospel, went to uni and had a very boring life. And all I did was to read and read and read. And I graduated with a first class indeed. 2 years after graduation, I was still roaming the streets of the country in search of all kinds of job. Hungry most of the times and very broke, so broke that I couldn't think about becoming a millionaire or anything like that. So eventually I got a job as a university lecturer. And even then, my salary could barely pay my bills, let alone leave me with enough to be able to plan forward. And so for some time, I believed that I had wasted my time going to uni. But if you dig a bit deeper to my story, especially from looking at people from certain societies, like where I grew up. So in the case of Simon, yeah, he became homeless. And this is not to take away from the effort and the graft and the hard work and the strong mindset that has helped him to arrive where he is today. But in a society, in a developed society, and this is just basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? In a developed society, oftentimes those basic needs, those basic survival needs would have been met. And so you would have time to be dream forward and plan. In the kind of society I grew up, basic needs was a challenge. And I speak to you as someone who from the young age of 10 has started doing very hard jobs like farming for people to get money to be able to meet basic needs. This might shock you, but I'll share this story. The first 20 years of my life, we didn't have access to electricity. We didn't have a television in my house. And that's not because I didn't want television. I'm not talking about this kind of houses where some parents insist that there's no TV. I work to a different city, hours, to go and hang by the window of a hospital just so I can watch a black and white television. There's this Indian film they show on Saturdays by, is it 1 or 2 p.m.? I would travel to the next city to just go and hang by a window to watch that Indian film. So it's not like I didn't want to watch TV. I wanted to watch TV, but I couldn't watch TV. I didn't have access to that level of information. So my only ticket, and the only reason why I'm sitting here talking to you today, is because I went to school. Not just because I'm here today. If I look back at some of my friends, childhood friends who dropped out of school, well, I can tell you where they are today. So my only ticket to get into where I am today is education. So it is a bit unfair to say that school is scam, but also on the flip side, it is also wrong to assume that just because you go to school, you end up being minted and successful and becoming a billionaire. Now, I'm talking about billionaires. In trying to answer this question, I've spent some time looking at some scientific research and some evidence. So I really understand what's happening here. So I've looked at the top 20 under 40 self-made billionaires. Self-made. So I've weaved out, I've ruled out people who inherited wealth and things like that. People who worked their way into becoming billionaires. And of those 20 people I've looked at, 15 of them had at least a bachelor's degree. Only 5 dropped out of school at some point. And of those 5, I'll just take the 2 Collison brothers, Patrick and John Collison, the founders of Stripe, that software company, who eventually went on to become billionaires. They dropped out of MIT to invent the software. Now, that shows you that they were on a path of education or of schooling. And at some point, school got in the way of their invention or of their breakthrough. And the way I like to illustrate it is, so imagine that you have a cup and you're filling that cup with the skills, the knowledge, the things you need to become successful. Yes, schools set graduation dates and all of that. For some people, depending on how they get their information and how they get the things they would need to succeed, the mindset they need to succeed, that cup might fill up before graduation date. And so, provided that cup is being filled up, in my opinion, either from school or from other sources, once it gets to that point where school begins to come in the way of your breakthrough and of your progress, then fair game. It's okay to drop the whole schooling idea and pursue your dream. But that's not the case with a lot of the young people I've worked with and that I've helped parents to support. It's just young boys and girls who watch TikTok videos and videos of people like people like I Show Speed, people like Jake Paul, Mr. Beast, some of these guys who have really done well for themselves. They watch their videos and assume, well, why am I not that guy? And then they decide, no more interested in school. Also, I've looked at a few scientific studies. So there's this research by researchers from the University of York and Leeds, where they looked at a lot of young people and families, and they found a strong correlation between good GCSE grade and one outcome or life outcome or income in life. They also correlated it. There was a strong relationship between good GCSE results and happiness, the level of happiness. And interestingly, they found a correlation between a good GCSE result and behavior. So people with a good GCSE score on the average had less issues with aggression and things like that. There was this other report I saw of the UK labor statistics, where there was this relationship between level of education and the amount of money people earned. So those who did not have any form of degree earned less than people who had at least a bachelor's degree, and those who had postgraduate degrees earned on the average more than people who had degrees. So all of this put together, it is evident that there's a place for school. Looking at those billionaires, it is clear that school wouldn't come in the way of you wanting to become a billionaire, if that's what you want to become. And also, there's this detail that is left out of the conversation where success is not loads of money for everyone. For some people, they are perfectly happy just helping other people succeed. For some people, they just need the bare minimum they need to stay happy, and they're not interested in the headache of having multi-millions. For others, they're extremely happy with just being able to, invent and add value to life and find solutions to problems. That's what gives them joy. And if you look at some of these tech billionaires, I doubt that you would have AI and all these other tech things that made you a billionaire without some serious academics who dedicated their lives to inventions and some crazy mathematical models that have brought about some of these things. So if we keep going down this path of telling people that school is scam, I think we're on a race to a dead end where everybody stops, putting in that effort that leads to inventions, and it just gets to a point where it becomes all crazy. So I know we're a long way away from where we started, of you trying to give you what you would say to that young person when he or she tells you school is scam. So number one, like I've said, listen to them. They might have a point. School might not be for them. Number two, I've in the course of this video dropped a lot of facts and figures. So familiarize yourself with that fact and figure. Understand what actually is beneath the shallow and surface online arguments that we have, and then have frank conversation with your young person about some of these facts. Expose them to the facts. Let them learn about their favorite celebrities. Let them listen to people who have gone through school and have succeeded. And I'm talking specifically if you realize that it's not just some, them thinking after watching a few videos that school is not for them. If you know genuinely that actually they need school, guide them in that way. But please, the third point, very important, never insist that your children focus on just school in this age and time. There's more and more and more outside school that they need to succeed. And so let there be that good balance between them taking school serious and getting those life skills that they need to become truly successful. And so I hope you found this helpful. Leave a comment below if you're actually struggling with your young person with this specific challenge, and I'll be able to give you specific tailored advice on how to deal with that. Also, I have a project that I'm working on now, a book that will be coming out soon, where I delved into this topic a lot in a lot more detail. So stay tuned for that. But for now, subscribe, like, share this video, and stay tuned for more content in this area. Cheers.